Netflix thought they were finally done with Meghan Markle. After 2 seasons of With Love Meghan, a show that had failed to make an impact on the ratings and cost the company millions, they were ready to move on. The production was wrapped up, the editing team was burning the midnight oil to finish the 2nd season, and the marketing budget slashed in half. Internally, Netflix's stance was clear: just push this show out, get it off the books, and never mention it again. But just when they thought they could close the chapter on Meghan, something unexpected happened. While cleaning out her personal office at Netflix headquarters, yes, Meghan actually had her own workspace, like she was some top-tier showrunner, the IT team discovered something that would turn the entire situation on its head. Tucked away in her digital folders were not production notes or voiceovers, but a series of labeled audio files. And these were no ordinary files. These were raw, emotional rants, aimed at some of the most powerful figures in Hollywood, including the CEOs of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, and Greg Peters. The files weren't just a few clips, they were a full-blown vault of content. Meghan had been secretly recording what she called her private diary. But it wasn't just a diary, it was a detailed collection of personal outbursts, accusations, and explosive takes on Hollywood's elite. And when Netflix's IT team dug deeper, they realized something even more shocking. This was a fully planned podcast, with titles, timestamps, and segments ready for release. Meghan wasn't just venting her frustrations, she was gearing up for a media war. While cleaning out Meghan Markle's personal office at Netflix headquarters, the IT team stumbled upon something unexpected: digital folders that weren't part of the usual production materials. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual, but as they opened the files, they found something that made their jaws drop. It wasn't production notes, voiceovers, or anything related to With Love Meghan. Instead, it was a collection of raw, emotional audio files. The first file they opened was labeled Podcast Cut Greg. Inside, Meghan unleashed a torrent of frustration on Netflix CEO Greg Peters. She accused him of being a sexist, a control freak, and someone who consistently undermined her vision for the show. But this wasn't just a rant, it was a rehearsed monologue. The files were meticulously organized, with clear titles, timestamps, and even intro and outro segments. It was evident Meghan had been preparing these recordings for something much bigger. As they went through more files, it became clear that these weren't random, fleeting thoughts. Meghan had been planning something, her own podcast. And it wasn't just about venting, it was a calculated move, with content aimed at exposing some of the most powerful people in Hollywood. Netflix had no idea what they had just unearthed. As the IT team continued to sift through Meghan's audio files, the true extent of her grievances became clear. One file after another revealed explosive content, rants aimed at Netflix executives, Hollywood bigwigs, and others she felt had wronged her. The most shocking of these was a segment titled Podcast Cut Ted, in which Meghan directly attacked Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos. In this recording, she didn't just express frustration, she accused him of being two-faced. Meghan claimed that Sarandos publicly supported her, but behind closed doors, he was sabotaging her career. She alleged that he personally signed off on removing politically charged cameos from With Love Meghan, scenes that she had fought for to make a powerful statement about progressive leadership. In her eyes, this was a betrayal. Sarandos was pretending to back her, but in reality, he was distancing Netflix from her brand and silencing her creative freedom. The audacity of Meghan's accusations didn't end there. She also tore into Netflix's entire leadership team, claiming that they were a group of misogynists who consistently gaslit her, undermined her vision, and treated her like an outsider in an industry where she had worked hard to carve out a space. What made these attacks even more shocking was how intentional they felt. These weren't spontaneous outbursts. Meghan had been documenting her frustrations with a clear goal in mind: to expose the toxic dynamics she believed she had faced at Netflix. When Netflix's IT team uncovered the vault of recordings, the company's reaction quickly shifted from annoyance to sheer panic. Meghan's private audio diary was more than just a collection of personal rants, it was a full-blown media attack in the making. The legal and PR teams were immediately pulled into emergency meetings as the gravity of the situation became apparent. The content in those files wasn't just damaging, it was explosive. The fact that Meghan had not only recorded these rants but had organized them for a potential podcast made it clear that she was preparing to weaponize the situation. What truly infuriated Netflix was that she had these files stored on company property, both digital and physical copies. This raised serious legal red flags, especially considering the inflammatory nature of the recordings. It was clear, Meghan wasn't just venting, she was planning to launch a full-scale media campaign. As the legal team scrambled to assess the damage, Netflix executives began to fear the worst. What if these tapes went public? The backlash could destroy not just With Love Meghan, but Netflix's reputation as a whole. They quickly realized that they couldn't afford to take this lightly. The company had to move fast to prevent the recordings from leaking, before Meghan had the chance to turn this into her next big story. The plan? To cut ties with her completely, shut shut down any promotion beyond the contractual minimum and prepare for whatever was coming next. What they didn't expect, though, was that Meghan wasn't waiting for their next move. She was already pushing forward with her plans. Meghan's audio diary wasn't just a collection of complaints. It was a carefully planned strategy, and the more Netflix listened, the clearer it became. Each file wasn't a random venting session. They were organized, titled, and meticulously arranged as if Meghan had already envisioned her podcast. The titles alone were telling: Netflix Boys Club, They Cut My Power, Fake Feminist, Greg the Gatekeeper. These weren't the ramblings of a disgruntled employee. This was a campaign in the making. The more files the team uncovered, the more they realized Meghan was preparing to launch a podcast that would expose the deepest, darkest secrets of Hollywood, especially Netflix's leadership. She had already mapped out how each episode would unfold, with specific targets and accusations ready to go. The podcast, working under the tentative title Hollywood Unmasked, was set to be a raw, unfiltered account of the gatekeeping and hypocrisy that Meghan claimed she had been subjected to during her time at Netflix. Meghan's goal was clear: to turn her frustrations into public ammunition. The files weren't just about her personal grievances. They were a well-crafted story meant to be released to the world once the timing was right. Netflix now realized they weren't dealing with a frustrated producer. They were facing someone who had strategically organized her frustrations into a carefully constructed narrative, one that was ready to take down powerful figures in Hollywood if necessary. This was no longer about creative differences or disagreements. It was personal, calculated, and designed to make headlines. Netflix's internal response to Meghan's recordings was swift and intense. As executives began to understand the scale of the damage, panic set in. The legal and PR teams worked overtime, crafting strategies to mitigate the fallout. While Meghan hadn't broken any explicit laws, she had clearly orchestrated a narrative that could tarnish Netflix's image. The discovery of her podcast-ready files set off alarm bells in every corner of the company. The first major concern was the public release of these recordings. If they went live, Netflix could be facing a full-blown scandal. Meghan's accusations weren't just about minor creative differences. They were explosive personal attacks on the company's leadership. Her charges of sexism, sabotage, and betrayal weren't just damaging to the individuals involved. They threatened the entire company's reputation. Netflix's leadership feared the worst, a media frenzy that could spiral out of control. To make matters worse, Meghan had meticulously documented her frustrations and clashes with the writing team. Her insistence on including political cameos in with Love Meghan, such as scenes with Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, had created major tensions behind the scenes. While many on the writing team were against the idea, not for political reasons but because it didn't fit the show's lighthearted tone, Meghan had taken it personally. She accused staff members of trying to silence her voice and resist her as a powerful woman of color in the entertainment industry. Her clashes with the writing team and constant back-and-forth emails had made it clear: with Love Meghan's second season had become a chaotic production. But what Netflix didn't expect was the extent to which Meghan had been documenting everything. Every disagreement, every personal attack, every moment of frustration had been carefully captured, ready to be unleashed when the time was right. Meghan wasn't just upset with the team, she had been planning for this moment, holding on to her recordings like a weapon, prepared to expose Netflix and its leadership at the perfect time. Meghan's next move was calculated and deliberate. She wasn't going to wait for Netflix to act. Instead, she took control of the narrative. Even as Netflix scrambled to deal with the fallout, Meghan was already putting the wheels in motion for her podcast. She had spent months carefully crafting a brand around the podcast, Hollywood Unmasked, a raw, unfiltered journey through the lies, gatekeeping, and hypocrisy of the entertainment industry. She knew exactly what she was doing. While Netflix was silent, trying to distance themselves from her, Meghan started teasing the podcast's launch on her private Instagram stories. These posts were vague but packed with implication. She posted blurred clips of audio files, voiceover booths, and cryptic captions like, "The truth always comes out." Her followers didn't know what to expect yet, but the message was clear: something big was coming. The very fact that Netflix hadn't responded publicly only fueled the mystery, and Meghan knew exactly how to leverage it. Meghan's plan was simple: release with Love Meghan's second season, stay silent during its rollout, then drop the podcast trailer weeks later. The silence from Netflix would only add to the intrigue and hype surrounding the podcast. She was betting big that the public's curiosity would drive massive listenership, and she was right. Controversy always sells, and Meghan was about to turn the tables in her favor. Behind the scenes, Meghan and her team had already started pitching the podcast to distributors under its working title. Conversations were happening with smaller media outlets, sympathetic journalists, and podcast platforms that were willing to overlook the Netflix drama in favor of exclusive distribution rights. While some of the big players were cautious, hesitant to get involved in a legal mess, there were plenty of takers ready to be part of the next viral Meghan moment. moment. Meghan was playing a long game, and Netflix wasn't even close to understanding the full scope of what was coming their way. While the company worked to cut ties with her, she was already building her next big move.